The forest did not breathe. Not a twig cracked. Not a crow stirred. Not even the wind dared move between the frozen pines. Something was out there. The deer knew it, muscles coiled tight, ears quivering at shadows that never seemed to stay still. The night smelled of iron, of snow, of blood waiting to be spilled. And then a sound split the silence, low, rising, a howl that began as a whisper and swelled into something vast, terrible, alive. The herd bolted. The hunt had begun. And at its heart, unseen, ran Fenrir. He was more shadow than flesh at first glance, his coat blending with the black arms of the forest, his paws carving swift prints across the snow. He did not run alone. A half-circle of shapes spread through the trees, his kin, his pack, their breath clouds rising like spirits into the frozen air. But the center of their motion, the sharpest edge of their strike, was always him. Fenrir drove them forward, not with commands. Wolves did not speak in such ways, but with the force of his will, his certainty, his hunger. The deer stumbled, tried to break into the open, but Fenrir was there, cutting off escape, his eyes burning like twin embers in the moonlight. Snow exploded as the pack closed in, teeth flashing, bodies colliding. The forest shuddered with violence, then stilled as quickly as it had erupted. Silence returned, but it was a silence broken by the sound of feeding, and above it, a howl, long, fierce, triumphant. Fenrir's voice claimed the night. Yet Fenrir's story did not begin with triumph. It began with struggle. His first breath had been drawn in a den carved beneath a toppled pine, a hole in the frozen ground where the air was thick with earth and milk. Outside, storms shrieked, blizzards clawed the mountains, prey vanished beneath drifts that swallowed the world. He was born into hunger, as all wolves are, but more so, for his mother's ribs had been sharp beneath her fur, her body worn thin by endless searching. She licked her pups with a tongue like fire, cleaned them, warmed them, gave what little strength she had left. Beside Fenrir squirmed his brothers and sisters, their tiny bodies pressed close, whimpering in the dark. They were fragile things, their eyes sealed shut, their legs weak, their lives dependent on warmth, on the steady rhythm of their mother's breath. But even then, Fenrir was different. When his siblings quieted, he still yipped, pushing, demanding, refusing to fade. The din was small, but the fire within him already stretched wider than its walls. Days bled into weeks, and his eyes opened to the gloom. The world was not gentle. Cold pressed in, even underground. Hunger never left. Yet Fenrir wrestled with his siblings, tugged their tails, shoved his nose into the thin beam of light at the den's mouth. He wanted more, always more. His mother watched, her amber eyes lingering longest on him, sensing the storm coiled in his small frame. When his father returned, dragging the limp body of a hare or a frozen grouse, Fenrir was first to the kill, tiny teeth gnawing, growling at his littermates, though his bite could scarcely pierce the hide. He was not the largest, not the strongest, but he was relentless. Already, the den could not contain him. When at last he stumbled into the world beyond, paused sinking into snow that reached his chest, the forest towered above him like a cathedral of ice. The air bit sharp at his lungs, and the sense of pine, of distant musk, of prey and predator alike, filled him until his head spun. The pack encircled him, uncles, aunts, cousins, a shifting, breathing fortress of fur. They moved with grace he could not yet match, their strides silent, their bodies lean and efficient. He followed, tripping, scrambling, eyes wide, ears twitching at every crack. Lessons came fast. He learned the law of wolves, unity above all, for alone meant death. He learned patience, crouched low in snow for endless hours, waiting as deer edged closer. He learned silence, every step measured, every sound calculated. And he learned hunger, the constant teacher, the constant whip. But the north was cruel, prey thinned with winter. The caribou herds drifted far beyond reach, leaving behind only hares, birds, and scraps, too meager to fill bellies. Fenrir's pack grew gaunt, their ribs ridged, their eyes sunken. Pups whimpered through nights, mothers snapping in irritation, born of hunger. Yet Fenrir endured. He grew into sinew and fire, his body shaped by scarcity, his instincts sharpened by need. When the pack failed, he pursued longer. When his legs ached, he pressed on. When blood ran from his paws, he did not falter. Relentless, always relentless. Rival wolves came. One night, under a swollen moon, the air filled with alien voices, a chorus of howls answering the pack's own, echoing like war drums through the trees. The air thrummed with tension. Fenrir's hackles rose, his lips curled. The rivals swept in, gray shadows, larger in number, their hunger equal to his own. The forest exploded into violence. Bodies slammed, teeth tore, snow sprayed red. Fenrir lunged at a wolf twice his size, sinking teeth into the flesh of its shoulder, holding fast even as the beast twisted, snapping. Pain tore through him as jaws raked across his flank, but he did not release. His own pack surged with him, their fury fueled by his defiance. When dawn stained the snow with pale light, the rivals lay broken, retreating into the trees. Fenrir stood, his body bloodied, breath steaming, eyes unbroken. That night, his howl rose above all others, not of victory but of defiance, a vow that his pack would not be driven from the world. But triumph brought no food. Winter deepened. Prey vanished further. Hunger hollowed the pack, driving them near desperation. Then came the scent, human, sharp with smoke and iron. Fenrir's pack shadowed the edge of villages, eyes reflecting firelight, drawn to livestock penned carelessly, prey behind wooden walls. Hunger pressed them close. One night, they struck. Fenrir leaped the fence, driving sheep into chaos. His teeth sank, warm blood flooding his tongue. But torches flared, shouts rose, arrows whistled, fire chased them, smoke burned their lungs. Wolves scattered, some not returning. Fenrir darted through flames, searching. He found his sister trapped, a burning beam fallen across her path, her eyes wide with terror. Without hesitation, he plunged into the fire, shouldering her free, his fur singed, his body burned. Together, they fled into the night, battered but alive. From then on, Fenrir carried scars across his back, reminders of fire's fury, of man's power, but also of his refusal to abandon his own. Seasons turned. Spring thawed the rivers. Summer brought brief abundance. Autumn cooled the land once more. Fenrir grew into a force. His shoulders broadened, his fur thickened, his eyes burned with a fire that never dimmed. He led hunts with precision, cutting prey from herds, driving them into the jaws of waiting kin. He defended territory with fury, his voice carrying for miles, a warning and a challenge both. Pups followed him in AEW, copying his movements, learning from his relentless drive. Elders respected him, bowing heads when his gaze lingered. Though no crown sat upon his brow, though no words declared him, Fenrir became leader, not by claim, but by presence, by will, by fire. But the world never ceased to test him. Famine returned, storms howled, rivals lurked. Humans pressed deeper into the north, their axes biting trees, their fires spreading wider, their traps cruel and silent. Wolves vanished into steel jaws, their voices silenced forever. Fenrir learned caution, but he did not yield. He led his pack around dangers. He struck where prey was rich. He carved a life where none was freely given. Each year carved him leaner, stronger, harder. Each scar told a story. Each howl etched him deeper into the bones of the land. And yet, Fenrir was more than hunger, more than blood. There were moments beneath the stars when he lay beside his kin, listening to pups yip and tumble, the air filled with the scent of pine and river. Moments when the moon rose full and he lifted his voice, not in hunger, not in defiance, but in something deeper, a song of belonging, of existence, of the wild itself. His howl was not only for his pack, but for the mountains, the rivers, the endless sky, a reminder that the wild still lived, unbroken. Time passed. Seasons turned. Fenrir aged, his muzzle grayed, his body slowed, though his eyes never dulled. Younger wolves rose beneath him, fierce and eager, yet always they deferred to the fire that still lived in him. He watched pups grow, watched them become hunters, watched them lead. He had been born into hunger, forged by struggle, scarred by fire, tested by steel, yet he had endured. More than that, he had carved his presence into the land itself. When his voice rose, valleys listened. When his eyes glowed in the dark, even prey seemed to tremble. One winter night, when snow fell soft and silent, Fenrir lifted his voice once more. It was not a call for prey, nor a challenge, nor a warning. It was a song, vast and deep, carrying across mountains and rivers, a song of every struggle, every victory, every scar, every breath. The pack joined him, their voices rising in harmony, but his cut through, sharp and timeless. To hear it was to know the wild was alive. To feel it was to know it would endure. Long after his paws no longer touched the snow, long after his bones lay hidden beneath roots and frost, Fenrir's voice would remain, echoing in wind, in shadow, in silence. For Fenrir was not merely a wolf, he was the North itself,